and Nathan Emery after that. Welcome, Paige.
Thank
Please
you.
continue.
Rhode Island Kids Count would like to voice its strong opposition to House Bill 7539. Last year, the General Assembly passed legislation that requires schools to provide education and education courses in African American history. We want to thank Representative Williams and the General Assembly for passing this important bill. We also want to thank Representative Fenton Fung for introducing House Bill 7272, which would require our public schools to include instruction on Asian American history. If this bill were to pass, it would prohibit educators from actually fulfilling that legislation passed last year and would impact their ability to teach historically accurate elements of African American history. It would also impact their ability to teach women's suffrage, Asian American history, Native American history, Latino American history, Jewish American history, and the histories of immigrants all over this world. Ultimately, this type of prohibition limits students' exposure to and appreciation of accomplishments of historically marginalized peoples of the United States. Protecting our transgender students. Rhode Island has been a national leader in passing laws protecting the rights of LGBT youth and adults. According to the Transgender Law Center's National Equality Map, Rhode Island is one of the top 14 states in the country for our policies that help drive equality for LGBTQ people. This bill would take Rhode Island backwards. By requiring educators to get parental and guardian permission to use preferred names and pronouns, it jeopardizes the safety of transgender youth. Youth who identify as LGBTQ are overrepresented in homeless youth populations, and some of who reported they were kicked out of their homes because their parents disapproved of their sexual orientation or gender identity. As you've already heard, students who are LGBTQ are at higher risk for depression and suicide than their peers, but the good news is that the National Survey on LGBTQ youth mental health found that support and acceptance, including having people that using their preferred pronouns, greatly reduces those risks. For school-based mental health, this bill would prohibit psychological and medical counseling in any school setting. Rhode Island Kids Count supports efforts to ensure students have access to mental health supports in schools and increasing the hiring of new school-based mental health professionals. In conclusion, we'd like to thank the General Assembly for your commitment to safe and inclusive schools for all students, because all kids count, including our transgender and students of color. Thank you.
Well said, Paige. Any questions for Paige? Thank you very much, Paige. Yes, Representative Alzate.
Thank you. I sometimes wonder, we're here, in this moment, learning about this bill because of the lack of education that we've had for years, myself included. Super proud of, Pawtucket Public Schools, but just like the times, curriculum has changed and all of that, and I've just taken it upon myself to learn about a lot of history that I just wasn't taught in school. And so, I think I know, or I do know, that the reason why we're talking about, or why this bill was introduced, is because there's just lack of education that's happened in all of America. And so hopefully with all of the efforts that some of my colleagues have put in, it'll change, right? We'll be a more educated, robust country. So that's all.
That's all. That's very well said. Thank you, Representative Alzate.